WatchHaus. It's been a while. I've been on vacation. I've been moving. My brain is scattered, so you'll have to bear with me and the random boards that are sitting behind me. That's my bed in pieces right now, because I don't have time for that, but I do have time to talk about Overwatch with these lovely people. I've got Kate and Darby here tonight to talk about and to get us ready for the last week of the regular season. Guys, this is it. We've been going for half a season on this show now, but we are finally down to the end. So are you guys ready for it?
No.
Fair enough.
There's no games tonight, and I'm already feeling withdrawal. I'm not going to make it.
I don't like that I'm going to have to develop a personality that's not esports now.
Right? What am I going to talk about?
Heaven help us when the off season hits.
Need a new hobby.
For sure. Okay, so since this is WatchHaus, and since we're coming back, let's take a moment now to reset our watch, get everybody kind of caught up on what we've been up to over the past week. I'm going to kind of stay out of this one because I wrote one article this week and haven't been, super in Overwatch thanks to some external real-world factors. But Darby, why don't you let us know what you've been up to at least?
I still can't. Yes. Well, yesterday I did House Queens because we're now on our bi-weekly schedule and finally kind of sticking to that now. Despite our best efforts to remain unorganized, we are handling it. And yesterday I mentioned on House Queens that I am starting a new project with a group of people, and I can't talk about it yet because they have not tweeted about it yet, but if you keep an eye on the Twitterverse and you send all your eye emojis into the chats everywhere, eventually you will see what I am doing next.
Can't wait.
Here, I put an eye in the chat for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. As for me, writing, what's that like?
Who knows?
I've been writing a lot, just haven't been posting. I have a couple of contenders projects that I'm working on. One of them I'm going to be starting fairly soon and I'm really excited about, so keep an eye on my Twitter for those. Basically just kind of getting ready for contenders to kind of be what I write about for probably the bulk of off season.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming in the near future with contenders with Gauntlet kind of on the horizon, so it's going to be very exciting as we move in that direction. But for at least a little while longer, we've still got Overwatch League, which means we've got stuff to talk about here on the preview show. So let's start things off. We'll talk about a little bit of news that came down the pipeline earlier this week, and that was the announcement of the full almost 2020 schedule. With all of the homestands, planned out super far in advance. I'm very impressed with, the logistics that have gone into the schedule creation. But, what are your guys' kind of first impressions of what we got to see earlier this week?
As somebody who likes a general organization, I really appreciate, shout out to all the people on Twitter who, compiled it into one convenient doc that I could look at because I was very confused and I can't read. And in the case of some certain European chicken-themed teams,
You can just say Paris.
I couldn't read the graphic because I have bad eyesight and I thought white text on a yellow background was a good idea. But in terms of the actual homestands, I'm very excited for, all these teams to come home. I'm interested to see how it works out. It seems really, really busy, and it seems like there'll be a lot going on, but I'm, like you said, really impressed at how much has already gone into planning this out, and looking forward to seeing how it comes to life.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to compare the different venues that people are going to, because it's going to be really interesting to see how each of them kind of throw their own spin on things, both in terms of just the way the event is kind of run and where it's going down. Because I know, for example, I think New York's home venue is going to be like a 2,000 seat theater, whereas a team like the Vancouver Titans are playing in like a 20,000 seat hockey arena. So it's going to be really wild to see how all of this, actually shakes out towards the, as we get into next season. But like you guys, I'm insanely excited just to finally get into these home cities all across the world. We got a great taste of it all three of us were at the Atlanta homestand earlier this year, so we saw how good it can be. And to see that go to every city is going to be crazy. China especially has me, oh, I'm so excited for that.
The Chinese stadiums are beautiful. Like Hangzhou's got this one that's like on the water. It looks gorgeous.
Insane.
Yeah, I'm just excited to travel. Hopefully a lot. I'm fully expecting to go broke. Like doing this. I just want to see my friends and watch games with people. And I love too many teams to not be like, oh yes, I'm going to this one and this one and this one. And yeah, I'm excited.
It's gonna be fantastic. One thing that was very interesting to me is just how much of a discrepancy there is in the level of travel between all of these teams. Especially when you look at like the Atlantic South Division. They are not going very far. There was a really good article, I think it was on Upcomer, that detailed, at least an approximation of all of the travel schedules and the miles that these teams are going to be going, and it's going to be a whirlwind for these players. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they hold up over the next season, because burnout has already been a thing in this league, and it's only going to get tougher. And if you are... I don't want to use the word fragile, because this is obviously a really tough thing to do. It's emotionally and physically draining to travel this much. But if you can't stand up to that, it's going to have a real impact on how a lot of teams' kind of seasons shake out next season. Whereas so far this year, they've been able to kind of control the environment. When they're in Blizzard Arena, when they're in LA, that's not going to be the case next year.
Do you think teams might add on more to their rosters to maybe have different teams that travel for each weekend? Maybe that could kind of help with burnout a bit, like kind of what Seoul Dynasty does with their 2 A and B teams?
I think it's definitely possible, and I think it could alleviate some of those things. But the problem I see with that is that most of the time you're going to have one of those teams that is better. And Seoul was a bit of an exception for that, but you pretty much... I think we've established that the best way to play Overwatch is to have a 6-man core roster that works most of the time. You can have 1 or 2 subs here and there, but I don't like the whole different team things in general. So with a 28-game season, you cannot really afford to take games off to send a weaker team just because it saves you on travel. You don't have opportunities to fail, so I don't see it happening a lot, but it's definitely something for coaches and staff to think about going into next season.
I'm looking forward to seeing where the missing pieces come in, not only because I know there's a couple homestands that are still TBA as far as venue goes, and then I'm interested. There's been a lot of speculation on my Twitter feed about where finals are going to wind up. A lot of people are leaning towards it going international this time around, which would make sense.
I would hope so. I was in the back of my mind, I was hoping even this year we could have seen something in China or something like that, because if they go to any of the Chinese cities, or if they go to Seoul, the response I think is going to be insane. The spectacle will be up there, and I understand why they did Philly, but it was a little disappointing even this year to see another East Coast city getting the finals yet again.
Not for me. Smile.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Here's the thing about that. West Coast people have been spoiled rotten. We get nothing. I'm fine with the finals being in Philly. Yeah. Not just for personal bias, but just I can go.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well.
Meanwhile, the Midwest cries.
I believe one day.
One day, 2022 maybe, or 2021, hopefully, but. Not next season, because they've got enough to worry about without expanding to new teams. So it's going to be wild. So let's move on now. Let's talk a little bit about the week ahead. We'll preview a little bit, which is what we are kind of here to do. We've got the last week of the season, the last homestand of the season. This one not going very far from the Blizzard Arena. It's still hosted in LA by the Valiant. Kit Kat Rivalry Weekend coming at you. Going into this, what do we think are kind of the biggest storylines? We've only got 8 games on the schedule this week, but what are we looking forward to the most, Darby?
I'm really focusing in on the Valiant this time around, just because it's been really, really interesting to see kind of them finally pull it together after that 0-7 stage, and now they're back. They've been fighting so hard since then to drag themselves tooth and nail back up the standings. Now they're right there on the line. Half of it like doesn't even come down to them, but then they've also got these two, I'd say, pretty challenging games standing between them and accidentally sending Chengdu to play-ins instead. They've got the Shock, which, for the sake of any Valiant fans in chat, I'll just skip over. But we also have the rematch for the Battle of LA, which was fairly one-sided earlier in the season, and I just think from a storyline perspective, seeing them kind of bounce back and actually give the Gladiators a run for their money this time should be really interesting, especially with so much on the line for them.
For sure. Like, kind of either way this goes, whether they get the one win that they need from either of these games, or whether they kind of crash and burn here at the end, it is going to produce kind of fantastic drama no matter what. You know, you've either got the triumph or the utter disappointment of having come so close to the final goal. But you know, it's going to make for some wonderful games. Those are going to be the last two games on both days of this weekend. So, you know, the battle for LA always going to deliver in terms of spectacle and in terms of the rivalry there. And then you got the California Cup to you know, be the very last regular season Overwatch we see. It's going to be juicy.
Yeah, and as I'm mentioning the fact that it's their homestand, like we were all in Atlanta and we all saw the Dallas crowd, like the way people go nutty for their own team. Like it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the Battle for LA is usually pretty hype as it is. I'm kind of disappointed the Gladiators aren't playing the Shock as well. I just feel like that's kind of weird that out of the 3 California teams, only one is playing both of the other 2. So I don't know. For me, that's kind of disappointing, but I'll be cheering for the Gladiators during the Battle for LA. Last time it was kind of handed to them, basically. Sorry, Valiant fans. But this time it'll definitely, I think, go back to, you know, what that rivalry was last season. And I think it's going to be very intense. I don't know. It's going to be a very close game. It's not going to be one-sided again. Which way that will go, I don't know. But I'll be fighting with some people in our work group during that game.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you know that the Gladiators want this just as much. I mean, maybe not just as much as the Valiant because their playoff hopes are not on the line. They're locked into that top 6, but they still want this because, you know, a win for them guarantees them, I believe, the 5 spot or the 5 seed in the playoffs, which is going to be insanely important. You do not want to fall down to 6th and have to go up against the Shock in the first round. That's not where you want to be. So this has meaning for the Gladiators as well. And you know that, you know, as competitors, they want the opportunity to kind of crush the dreams of the Valiant. There's nothing sweeter than kind of sending your rival home. And yes, Valiant will still have another chance, but that, I think the Battle for LA is where, if you think they have a good shot, that's where it's going to come from. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible for them to knock off the Shock, but that is not a situation you want to put yourself in as the Valiant, having to get a win in the very last game of the season against probably the best team right now. So either way, no matter how this goes, it's going to be absolutely crazy. The other team for, you know, that has a lot on the line going into this week and that we haven't talked about yet is the Atlanta Reign, who have 2 games on their schedule against the Dallas Fuel and Boston Uprising, which theoretically should be pretty straightforward, should be easy for a team like the Reign to take care of business there, to get their 2 wins and to punch their ticket into that top 6, to guarantee themselves a shot at the double elimination playoff bracket. But we've gotten some interesting word from their coach this week, Brad, who, you know, put out on Twitter that the team is focusing on the Sigma patch that is going to be used in both the play-in tournament and the playoffs after that. Instead of focusing on the current patch and trying to you know, grind these 2 wins, they're going to focus on the future because they don't think they would have enough time to get ready for the play-in. So that kind of opens the door in my mind just a little bit for one of these 2 teams to make something happen here. Either the Fuel or the Uprising here. And the reason I think that is because I think even with your season over, if you are a professional athlete, a player, a competitor on the Fuel or the Uprising, you see that statement from Brad, and you see that as, hey, we don't have to worry about these two teams we're going up against this week. We can take care of them easy. You take that and you take it to heart, and you want to say, I want to be able to punish them for that. I want to make that a mistake. And so I can see some trouble on the horizon. I think Atlanta has the goods to do it, but things got a little more interesting when I saw that tweet.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bold move to more or less say, I guess it's also a testament to their confidence that they can outright just say on Twitter, we're not really worried about these two games, to the point where we're not even really thinking about them right now. I will say I'm not sure. I think maybe another team could take that as an opportunity to surprise them. I'm not really sure either Dallas or Boston at this point has any tricks. So I'm not saying that to be rude. I just don't really know what they would surprise me with.
Play DPS. Who knows?
Maybe they'll play Axiom.
Sorry, he's a tech now. Yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Y'all remember Axiom?
Maybe Aim God comes back.
Please, Aim God, come back.
But yeah, I think the confidence is totally warranted in Atlanta's case. It's been...
after last week...
it's been really, really hard to argue against Atlanta right now. And, I guess I want them to get the 7-0 since they ruined my Washington's chance of a 7-0. I might as well just hope they get it instead. So, we'll see.
Although, I do gotta say, just so I can kind of poke fun at Kate, if they do manage to lose one of these two games, it officially confirms that they are last year's Philly.
Well, gotta go.
I'm not going to have this conversation with you on camera. Mostly because Rob will get mad at me for cussing, so I will wait until after.
Okay, fair enough.
I hate that. Just know I hate that.
No, I know you do, Kate. All right, we'll move on so Kate doesn't reach through my computer screen and rip my throat out. So let's move on. I want to know, who are we specifically kind of watching for going into this week? Who do we think needs to have a big week for their team? Who is something that you personally are kind of invested in going into this weekend and having a solid performance, or really just being in an important position individually going into the final week of the season? Kate, I guess I'll let you. I'll let you go.
Okay. So I have softened on the Atlanta Arena a bit since going to Atlanta, and for other reasons. But my player to watch will be Erster, just because he's been playing out of his mind basically for Atlanta, and I just think he's going to be one of the toughest opponents for both Dallas and Boston going up against. I think he's going to be able to... I'm probably going to jinx one of these teams saying this, easily take them out. I'm sorry. Every time I come on the show and I'm very confident about something bad happens. So I'm sorry, Erster, if I've just ruined your whole career. But yeah, Erster's my player to watch this week. I think he's gonna pop off for sure.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe he's gonna get carpal tunnel.
I know. It's horrible.
I'm looking at... I can't believe we didn't do a fake sponsor this week with Kit Kat right there.
Oh, that's my bad.
Dang.
Brought to you by Mint Chocolate Kit Kat. LA Valiant Weekend. My player to watch is Rascal. Just very much a shining star on a roster full of shining stars right now. He's just really been popping off when they let him. And the Shock have some interesting games. I think I still see them winning both of them, but between the whole Vancouver rivalry and then playing against the Valiant, who may or may not need that game for playoffs, the Shock are a team I'm watching anyway, and Rascal's been really impressing me lately, so I'm just want to see what he does just to close out this week.
Yeah,
what can't Rascal do is the better question.
True.
Mm-hmm.
That team wants to kind of put an exclamation mark on their season. It's been fantastic pretty much all the way through. But another win over Vancouver to kind of I would say, cement their, that rivalry. It would even up the season series to a piece at that point. One stage final apiece. That would be a really fun way for them to end the season. That's going to be a fascinating game. But for me going into this week, I mean, we talked about the pressure ramping up on the Valiant, and for me, the player on the Valiant who has shined the most when they are under pressure has been Kariv the entire season. This dude is a complete nut, and I know right now is not the best meta for supports in general to really have the pop off when we've got so much bunker in play. It's hard for you to be hitting those huge high impact sleep darts and landing biotic grenades that kind of wipe a team. But he has been the one, if you think back over the course of their season, has been kind of the most consistent force for them. Especially in my mind, I'm remembering their upset over Vancouver when they were the first team to beat Vancouver in the regular season. The sleep darts he was hitting in that series were just disgusting. So now with their season on the line, he is the person I think that I am looking towards on this team to really have that impact in the high pressure moments. So Kariv, the entire team is going to have to be playing well to get either of these wins, but he's the one that I think can really stand out for them, and I've got my eye on. Let's move now to a little bit of the prediction game here. We're going to be talking this week about all 8 games since we don't have a ton of games on the schedule. We're just going to be going through all of them. So I've kind of divided this into, there are 5 games that kind of matter. And there are 3 games that really do not, at least in terms of the standings at the end of the season. So we'll start with one that I don't think I probably would have talked about at all if one of our hosts had not thrown a rather strange pick into the mix. So Kate, I'm going to give you the opportunity to explain to me why you think the Boston Uprising are going to beat New York Excelsior.
I've fully embraced that I am the Bren on this show. And I'm just going to have fun from here on out with my predictions, because whenever I do, sometimes it works in my favor and y'all get really mad and it's funny. But out of all the teams that are known to choke last minute when it matters the most and disappoint their fans, I know this personally as a Philly fan, it's the NYXL. So I don't think it's that crazy that Boston could potentially, pull a win out of this, especially with how NYXL has been playing. They haven't, they're still great, but they haven't been at the top of their game lately. And Boston's games last weekend were fairly close. They lost really stupid fights that they shouldn't have, but they were putting forth an effort, especially in their game against I believe it was the Valiant, where Color Hex got that whatever shot, crazy bot shot. I think it was. Sorry, I'm looking because I'm also a bot and can't remember games, even though I watched all of them. Yes, the Valiant. But I don't know. They have the potential there, and they always do. And Boston is a team that can come back usually from weird situations. I also don't want them to go 0-7 because I know it'll make Mallory cry. I might cry a little bit. So this is just more me having fun kind of pick, and I like it when I have fun choices.
Fair enough. I mean, There's a real possibility there, just because New York, they have literally nothing to play for this week. If they're smart, they are already preparing for playoffs. They are not playing any of their scrims on the current patch right now. So, that opens the door a little bit for Boston to get kind of a pride win at the end of the season, which would be fun.
I guess potentially they go the way New York goes the way of the rain, where they're not even thinking about this week, and Boston trips them up. But I don't know. I didn't actually think I'd have to justify that pick. So.
Wasn't prepared for that one. Can't blame you. But let's talk now. I guess the other 2 games that we have that don't really mean much towards the end, and I'm kind of disappointed because of that. Are the Vancouver Titans taking on both the San Francisco Shock and NYXL. Do y'all remember earlier in the season when we looked through stages 1 and 2, we looked at this last week of the season and we were like, oh, finally we're gonna get the best 3 teams in the league all playing each other, all right down to the end of the season. It could be really important for who gets the top seed in the playoffs. And now none of these teams have anything to play for right now. And it just kind of makes me sad because I know these games are not going to be as entertaining as they could have been. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I talked about this a little bit yesterday on House Queens, actually, but I'm far more interested right now in the play-ins tournament than I am either this weekend or playoffs, to be completely honest. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. I do think San Francisco Vancouver could still be a pretty interesting game just for pride reasons. Like, it's just sort of been a back and forth rivalry with those two at this point, where it's just like one of them wants to be the last one to come out on top, at least before playoffs. So
okay.
I think
I apologize.
Wowie.
I'm sorry. A thought just jumped into my head that needs to be spoken aloud immediately, and I apologize. I will let you get back to your point. What if
Darby's gonna cut you after
What
this.
if we let them play goats?
Probably I'm not.
That's what you interrupted me for?
Yes! I think we should run it back one more time.
No,
next time.
Absolutely not.
Fine.
No.
It was a good idea, and I stand by it.
No. Ghost is dead.
Darby, you may continue.
Let her rest.
Well, I don't know what I was even talking about, because that just killed my brain.
You're welcome.
Pride reasons. It'll be good for pride reasons, and also... Yes. Who else does Vancouver even play? He really just broken my brain here, Bradley. New York.
They play New York.
I don't know. I don't care.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll try to
wrap this
up. For the pride reasons, for playoffs purposes, there's a chance Vancouver might not make it. So maybe they'll both take this game a bit more seriously than they would just because they don't know who they'll be facing off. For me, I think Shock is pretty much guaranteed to playoffs at this point. Probably jinxing them. I'm so sorry, Super and everyone on that team. But because of that, they don't know. I feel like they're still going to fight each other the way they would if it did matter. So I think it's still going to be good Overwatch. It's not going to be GOATs, but it's going to be good Overwatch.
Look, I'm just saying, we got 3 incredible games out of them and from GOATs. I would love to see it one more time, but I understand. We're beyond it. We're done.
Past Ghost. We are in the Toes era now. We need to embrace
Not yet. Toes. Not yet. For one more week, Toes are banned.
I don't know why y'all are so resistant to this when we know the call out is going to be Toes. So you're just going to have these boys yelling Toes, 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 like monkey over and over again. It's going to be amazing.
Call out is Toes.
Call out is Toes. People have been resisting me on this.
In comp, it's been Toes.
Yeah, it's been Toes. Toes behind. There he is.
Wow, I haven't played Overwatch in like a week, so that makes me very sad.
Gotta embrace the Toes, Bradley.
Come play comp with us.
Lose your SR.
Kate, I don't know if you're reading chat, but Ethan arrived, took a break from his orientation meeting to tell you to shut up about Toes.
I have gone. I need like that London Spitfire 0 days without a C9 thing. Kate has gone 0 days without mentioning Toes on WatchHaus.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, Ethan.
All right, let's get back on track a little bit. So we've got moving on to the games that really do matter, where things can happen and placements can change, drama can take place. Let's start with the Atlanta Reign. And I'm starting here because I think we are all pretty much in agreement on this. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. But I think, do we think there is any real possibility of either of these teams winning? And I'll leave that kind of open-ended just because, open to interpretation. If you think a 1% chance is a chance, then say yes. But, do we think it's possible that Atlanta chokes this one away?
I mean, anything is possible.
After this stage, literally, who knows?
My heart says no.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think I've really any remaining ounces of faith I had in either Boston or Dallas at this point have long since died. But there was once a time where I expected to cry over Washington, Vancouver, and I did, but for a different reason. So, yeah. I mean, I won't count it out. Maybe maybe the Dallas pause starts earlier and it really just messes with Atlanta. I don't know. But
maybe they won't even put Unko on stage just to be safe. Oh God.
Okay. I mean, I think we're all pretty much in agreement there. Atlanta should be taking these games pretty easily. So we'll see if they have what it takes, because it would be hilarious on some level for them to put in all this work to get near the 7-0 stage, to get right up there towards top 6 and then still not make it. But we'll just have to wait and see. They've got 2 very winnable games here. But let's move on. We'll talk now about the last few games, and these are the games where we finally have at least a little bit of disagreement in terms of how we think these games are going to go. So let's start first with the battle for LA, the capper on Saturday night. You know, in my mind, this is the best chance for the Valiant to get their win this week. And you know, this is, I was skeptical that they were going to be able to get the win until last week when the Gladiators went down to the Hangzhou Spark. And it showed me a little bit of weakness that they hadn't really shown throughout the rest of this stage. And now I think there is a possibility here for the Valiant to really sneak in. I think they have a good shot at this game. You know, are we all kind of on the same page there, at least in terms of thinking this is very up for grabs?
Okay, you disagree in terms of predictions, so do you want to start?
I think it's up for grabs. I don't think, especially with just how the stage has gone, like, I don't think one bad game necessarily means that the Gladiators are out by any means. I think they're still a really strong team. They've been working really hard, like, all stage. They're kind of like, in my opinion, they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They usually do tend to choke at, like, the last minute when it counts. So I'm, as a Gladiators fan, knowing this, I'm hopeful more than anything that they'll actually be able to take the W this time over them, especially with how the Valiant have been looking. Like, that victory would, like, kind of, you know, secure that feeling like, yes, we are the better LA team, and it would just it'd be good for morale, I think, more than anything. So I'm more hopeful than anything. I've said that like 6 times now. I'm very tired. Darby's turn.
Hope is all Kate has left at this
point. All I have is hope and sadness.
I agree it's up for grabs. I think it's far more up for grabs than it was the last battle for LA, so at least it'll be interesting to watch instead of just like vaguely painful and then slightly surprising when the Valiant didn't roll over and die.
Was it painful last time? I don't remember that.
It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Didn't they took him out, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it was 3-1.
Yeah.
But I think at the very least it'll be a lot harder of a fight. I did end up giving it to the Valiant, though, just because, for 2 reasons. One of them being that, yeah, it's the Valiant. It's really, realistically, the Valiant's only chance to make it in the playoffs unless they really, really pull out something surprising against a Shock. And as much as I'm still on board with the Gladiators being a good team, I will say I can't help but see them a little bit as on the fritz, just between losing to Hangzhou, going to map 5 against Dallas. It's just like, it's not something I can count on, or them being, or they, I don't want to say they still haven't convinced me, because they've convinced me they belong where they are, but I'm just not sure that combined with the Valiant wanting this so badly is going to work out in their favor.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this Valiant season in general has kind of just been building and building and building over the course of the things. I mean, it started from the ashes this year, and they've brought themselves back. And there's just something about it where I don't see them kind of tripping up right on the precipice of you know, pulling off this incredible comeback. I think they have enough left in the tank. I think they'll be able to kind of hype themselves up and get themselves into the right mindset going into this game. I think it is going to be an absolute battle. I see this one going to 5. I see this going down to the wire. These 2 teams, I mean, this is probably, I would say, kind of the premier rivalry in the Overwatch League. If you take the entire 2 seasons of play, these 2 teams have been pretty good for most of that time, have played each other a lot. and there's a lot of history there, and obviously being from the same city. So I think that's going to produce, potentially, in my mind, one of the most memorable Overwatch League games we've ever seen. I don't remember specifically last year having any single game that kind of had this level of stakes to it. So I think that's going to be fascinating. I think it's going to produce amazing results. But I do see the Valiant taking this one, although it's going to be crazy close in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, especially with the fans all there cheering their hearts out, because it's
going to be loud.
Like, they'll be battling on stage bumping. And in the audience. It's going to be good. Good Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on. We got a couple more games to talk about here before we wrap things up. Let's talk now about a battle of two Chinese teams whose paths I think have gone in like opposite directions this week. We have the Hangzhou Spark, who were in a bit of a slump to start the stage and have since turned things around quite nicely, honestly. A team that I thought was really lost for the first couple of weeks of Stage 4 has now found several really quality wins over the past few weeks and really brought it back and shown why they are going to be one of those 6 playoff teams, why they're going to be potentially a top 4 team in the league over the course of the season. And then Shanghai in the opposite direction, coming off that high of the Stage 3 finals win and the incredible run they had there. This last stage has been a pretty steep fall, and only capped off last week with a loss to the Seoul Dynasty. They're now at 1-5, I believe, going into this week. So, do we think there is a real chance for them to salvage something at the end of this, get a nice kind of confidence building win heading into the play-ins, where this was a team that had aspirations at the beginning of the stage of making that top 6, of not even having to be in this situation. Yeah, Darby, Hangzhou is your team, so I'll let you kick things off here.
They are my team, and this is a more interesting game than I think most people realize, because just a little fun fact, this was also their first game of the season.
Oh.
Both of them. So in Hangzhou's case, it was the first game of Overwatch they ever played on the stage. I'm still going with Hangzhou, though, mostly for the reasons you said. I think whatever they were struggling with at the beginning of the stage, they're kind of pulling together. I think the only thing that makes me a little nervous about them is the fact they've locked in that top 6 spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wonder if they've maybe relaxed a little bit too much. If I were them, I wouldn't, just because I personally think right now there's a handful of teams in the play-ins group in that second 6 who could easily beat Hangzhou. I think they need to be focused on this game, even if they are looking towards playoffs, just so they are locking in as the best spot they can in that seeding. But I do think, for me, it's a little bit less about Hangzhou pulling it together and more about Shanghai falling off the way they have. Just when I talked to them in Atlanta, they were so convinced that 222 was going to make them a top tier team, and the way they've fallen off after that confidence has to have been super demoralizing. So I'm just not really sure, even with that spot in the top 12, they can salvage it, especially just either mentally or skill-wise at this point.
I went with Shanghai for this game, which is, I guess, another Kate TM pick. But I don't know. I feel like because of those reasons, because they're probably feeling so demoralized, this is like their last chance to prove that they've earned their spot in the plans, and I feel like that will motivate them, and I think that will give them the confidence they need to go forward, because you are right, like you said, they were confident going into this that 222 would be their meta, and on paper you would think definitely with Ding, Diem, they have some really nutty players on their team, but they have unfortunately kind of lost that confidence. But I think especially after the Paris loss, which I wasn't even expecting that one. I'm a Paris fan. I write about them. I'm very sorry for what happened last weekend. I feel very guilty for some reason. I don't know why. I was very happy, but
how dare they win?
How dare they have an actual good game for once?
Not allowed.
Not allowed. But I feel like that maybe was like, hopefully they're like, hey guys, we really needed to get it together now because the Paris Eternal just kicked our butt. And so I'm kind of going off of that hope of confidence, like maybe like they'll use that to like motivate them. And also because Brent officially has said that he just picks them because he loves them, and therefore I am fully justified in picking them because I also love them.
Don't need a better reason than that.
That is good enough for Brent. It's good enough for us.
Exactly. He's paid to professionally do that. Like, like that's a reason. All right.
Fair enough. Yeah, the Dragons are just, it's a little bit baffling to me. They were a team that I think everybody, even if you thought they might have issues with, having to give up the triple DPS that was kind of their bread and butter, the transition still never seemed like it was going to be that difficult. But the meta hasn't quite settled in a direction that favored them. Ding isn't getting, the Pharah isn't like as effective as it was back in stage 3. They don't really have the superstar Mei player. DM, the Widowmaker, is not perfect in the current meta, the Hanzo being a little bit the better pick more often than not. So enough things have just gone a little bit against them that they haven't quite put it together here in the stage. But we know that they're talented, and hopefully that will translate to at least putting up a fight when it comes to those playing games. But I don't see it happening here, because I think if you are one of those teams, especially in the play-ins, you absolutely have to be focusing all your attention on next week. You cannot afford to try hard for this Hangzhou Spark game and then get bounced in the first round of the play-ins next week. So I think Shanghai's attention will be elsewhere, and that should probably make this a pretty easy win for Hangzhou. But again, we're in a stage where nothing means anything anymore. But let's move on. We'll talk very briefly about the last game of the season, the California Cup. San Francisco Shock taking on the LA Valiant in a game that could have quite a bit of stakes depending on how earlier games go. I mean, if San Francisco can win against the Titans, they'll be going for another 7-0 stage here to close out the season, to carry an insane amount of momentum and confidence into the playoffs. And the Valiant could potentially be playing for their lives here. If they can't take on or if they can't deal with the Gladiators, they will have to win this game. So this could be the highest drama here at the very end of the league. And while I think the Valiant are a very strong team, there is no one in my mind who has looked like they can really hang with San Francisco so far in this stage. Their schedule hasn't been insanely hard, but they've taken care of all of their opponents. They beat the Gladiators. They've beaten good teams as well, and they're still undefeated here. And I think they clearly look like the strongest team. So that's my pick for this one. But the Valiant still have there's magic when you are in a do or die situation like that could produce some interesting results. But if Valiant get the win earlier this week, I think this one is no contest with no pressure. I don't think they show up really to win this game.
Honestly, I'm not even sure pressure is enough for the Valiant. It's just that I cannot bring myself to vote against the San Francisco Shock right now, just with everything going on. It's just pretty much all season long, whatever they get thrown at them, they can pretty much handle, with the exception of one stage final, more or less, and I guess Shanghai.
Yeah, the occasional weird upset, and losing to teams that had really figured out the meta really well. But they've been, I would say, the most dominant team of the season. Even if Vancouver has the best record, I think San Francisco has been hit the highest peaks and are currently hitting the highest peaks.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't choose the Valiant. We can just disrob.
That's fair.
Go with that.
All right.
Not even I went that.
That's as good a transition as any into the return of everybody's favorite segment, Rob's terrible pick of the week. He has graced us with so many options here in the final week of the season. You know, being a really great boss here, giving us a lot of options to choose from. He picked Vancouver to take down San Francisco, which fair enough.
Fair enough.
He then
That one's
picks
valid.
that one's valid. He picks the Gladiators to beat the Valiant. Again, valid, completely normal pick. But then he also picks the Valiant to take down the San Francisco Shock. So after they lose that game against the Gladiators, they're gonna turn around and beat potentially the best team in the league, who somehow already lost earlier in the week. All of these kind of taken as a whole produce a picture that just makes me want to laugh.
It's a little interesting. I mean, we were saying that, maybe Valiant gets that desperation pick over San Francisco, but
we're not predicting it.
I don't really understand the logic puzzle that's going on here.
Yeah.
Rob is playing some 8-dimensional underwater Chinese checkers right now, so we'll leave him to his big brain shenanigans.
We're not smart enough to understand Rob's picks is the problem.
Yeah. No, if Valiant actually does this, he's gonna be so happy.
We're all getting fired. If this exact thing happens, we're fired.
This will be the last WatchHaus preview show forever.
We will
no
miss
more.
You all.
Yeah, it's been fun. Speaking of which, this was the last WatchHaus preview show of the regular season, at least. We'll be back for the play-ins and the playoffs as well, for sure. But we are done with regular season Overwatch League for the year, and that's a little bittersweet. It's been a fantastic journey. We'll be back next week, though, and we appreciate everyone who has come to watch us and joined us through the journey, through our terrible predictions, through the ones we occasionally did well. And we thank you for joining us this entire time. This has been a fantastic season. For Kate, for Darby, I'm Shy Guy. From our house to yours, thanks for watching.
Bye.